You already know how to build and operationalize a flow, so now it's about bridging the gap between what you learned in this course and your first real flow. This lesson is going to be super tactical. We'll first focus specifically on how to select your first use case and caution you against some characteristics of tougher initial use cases. And we'll also walk through a checklist so that you know exactly how to bring that first flow to life. The goal of this lesson is for you to walk away feeling like you know exactly what you need to do after this course to ultimately deploy that initial use case. And to start, we'll talk about how to actually prioritize and select the right initial use case to start. When it comes to prioritizing your first use case, I'd encourage you to think about the complexity of that process and the effort required to do it manually. If we put these on an X and Y axis, you can see that the sweet spot for your first use case is going to be a low complexity, high effort process. By focusing there first, you're going to build confidence, get a quick win under your belt, and give yourself time back so that you can start focusing on automating those higher complexity processes once you're more comfortable in the platform. To find that low complexity, high effort first use case, I'd encourage you to think about where are you exporting data from? Where are you using VLOOKUPs and what processes have an SOP or process document associated? Additionally, is there any work that's getting pushed into nights or weekends? And what reports or updates do you regularly have to share every day, week, or month? It's also helpful to understand which use cases we'd recommend avoiding for your very first flow, not because Parabola can't actually handle the process, but rather because these are usually more complex processes that make it harder to build momentum. Common characteristics include planning and modeling heavy use cases. Processes start with really complex Excel files, often with multiple different tabs that usually have unstandardized data formats across tabs. And finally, processes that have tons of exceptions and edge cases that usually make them comparatively more complex. If the first use case you're working on is feeling very complex, I'd encourage you to break it apart and focus on its subcomponents, building piece by piece. For instance, if you're trying to clean and combine 5 different files, maybe you start by cleaning and combining 2 files and taking it from there. With this approach, you can start with a scoped down initial use case, you can build confidence, and you can expand from there as you get more comfortable in the platform. To make it more specific, here are some examples of common use cases we've seen dozens of other finance and accounting teams successfully deploy in Parabola. This is by no means a totally holistic list, but it does do a good job of calling out use cases that usually share those common characteristics of really strong Parabola use cases. Things like variance analysis, three-way matches, preparing journal entries, and auditing invoices. Once you've identified that really solid first use case, you can start to use PCCTS to start to map out your thoughts on how we approach building this. First, you can think about what is the problem that we're actually trying to solve, and then think about where does this data live and how do we need to access it, how are we cleaning, combining, and transforming that data, and then finally, what actions do we actually need to take from the output of this flow. And to make this even more actionable, after you wrap up this lesson, I'd encourage you to drag and drop a file onto a new flow, and then build by chatting with Parabola. If you scroll down on this page, you're going to see that we took the questions from the previous slide and turned it into a template to make it really fast and easy for you to get your thoughts into words and start building in Parabola. After you're building with chat, at the end of the flow, for your first flow, I'd recommend generating a static file like an Excel or CSV file before you actually run your flow and get that data. Once you've ran an initial flow, you're getting more comfortable, then you can start to really optimize that workflow. You can swap in different integrations and live data sources, and ultimately build more and more use cases. With how good AI has become, realistically, you don't need to write a 500-word essay or a complete process doc for Parabola to really help guide you along this building process. But by understanding the steps of PCCTS and the details of the process, you're going to be able to more effectively collaborate with Parabola as you build the flow together. When in doubt, just talk to Parabola the exact same way that you talk to a teammate, whether you're stuck, finding success, or have questions about the data. As we wrap up, I'll highlight a couple other Parabola University course series. Our 201 courses, focused on operational skills, go in-depth on specific pieces of functionality, like how to extract data from emails and PDFs, and advanced methods for combining and comparing data. Our 301 course is designed for users who want to go from proficient builders to true power users who know the shortcuts and the best ways to actually architect automations across your organization. My advice to you is to start by first building before you take any additional courses, and look to the 201 courses if you get stuck on specific pieces of functionality. Once you're finding success and you're interested in becoming a true power builder, that's when you look to the 301 course. With that, congratulations on completing Parabola 101. Remember, your first flow doesn't need to be the most perfect or complex flow in the world. You just need to start small because Parabola is like any muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Thank you for taking this course and good luck building your first flow. We can't wait to see what you build.